What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. We are back for our final preview video of the World Cup. We are on to the final. It has been however many weeks it's been. I've lost track. I've made so many videos over the last couple of months covering the Rugby World Cup, but we are on to the final, and what a game it is. New Zealand versus South Africa. Man, I'm extremely excited. As a neutral going into this, I can't wait to watch this fixture go off. I was a little bit worried when we first sort of started out on this journey of the Rugby World Cup. We looked at the draws and how it worked, and I was like, oh man, there's always a chance this final could be really one-sided. But we have ended up with two massive teams in the final. Two teams that know how to play each other really, really well. Two teams that are looking on good form. And oh boy, I hope we are in for an extremely exciting final. So the teams have been announced. We're going to have a run through of the teams that have been announced for both sides, go over who we think some good picks, some bad picks, some wild calls, because there is some mad things to go over in this game. We'll have some thoughts on how we think this game might go, and of course, giving a score prediction. As always, I welcome you guys right now. Drop down in the comment section who you think is going to win this game, and after we go through the teams, drop down your thoughts on the teams, because there is so much to go over in this one, but I don't want the video to go on for like a half hour, so we'll jump straight into it, starting out with the quote-unquote home team going into this this final, because of how the semi-finals and stuff ended up. New Zealand are classed as the home team in this one, had a superb performance against Argentina, and going into this World Cup, my expectations were kind of low for New Zealand. It sounds weird because it's New Zealand, right? Like, they always turn up for these sort of big events. But we got into that World Cup warm-ups. They really weren't in their stride. Even during the Rugby Championship, I was sort of watching them. They won the games. They were doing what they needed to do, but I wasn't blown away by them. The World Cup warm-ups didn't feel too great from them. They had that first game against France, and I thought, this is just a New Zealand team that isn't where it wanted to be in time for this World Cup. But over the course of this World Cup, through the pool stages, getting some big wins, just galvanizing as a team, they feel like they have probably progressed the most out of every one of the sort of tier one teams going into this World Cup, that they have really peaked at the exact right time they need to in this World Cup. They go into this final with full momentum behind them. You know, you think about that, they lost that game to France, but they had a superb rest of the pool stage. They had a fantastic game against Ireland. They've gone into the semi-finals, and they have beaten Argentina very comfortably. That's got to be one of the best positions, right, to go into this World Cup final. In terms of the team itself, then, it is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We've got one change, which is a change I kind of expected to come into this one, but other than that, this is the same team that we saw in the semi-finals and performed so well. So starting out in this front row, Ethan de Groot, Cody Taylor, and Tyrell Lomax taking in that front row. Now the scrummaging is going to be an enormous area in this game. New Zealand looked dominant against Argentina last week. South Africa looked dominant against England. Two massive scrummaging sides. I kind of want to lean towards South Africa in terms of who would have the better scrum going into this one, just because South Africa seem to be pinning that as their ultimate key weapon to use. That is the thing they are focusing on so much. But there are some superb scrummagers in this New Zealand team, and you think if they break that South African scrum, maybe they start winning some penalties. That is going to be an enormous blow to South Africa. So I wouldn't be surprised if New Zealand actually try and target it a bit more very early into that game, just to try and get in the referee's mind. Maybe we've got the dominant scrum and put them on the front foot. Big game for these lads up in the front row. In terms of your lock department, then Brodie Retallick comes in alongside of Scott Barrett. Sam Whitelock, of course, are playing in that semi-final. Move to the bench for this one. Brodie Retallick starting in that number 4 shirt, and I think that's probably the right idea. Of course, there's a lot of players over the course of this World Cup are retiring. This is their last sort of international venture. Sam Whitelock is well up there for caps and what have you, but Brodie Retallick for me, I think, is the better option here. Still a penalty issue for me with Brodie Retallick, but then Scott Barrett has been giving away his fair share of penalties as well. But you've just got to keep your discipline under wraps, and I think they could be on for a bit of a winning combo here, because that is a solid set of locks there. In the back row, Shannon Frizzell, Sam Cane, and Ardy Sarver. Shannon Frizzell got up for 2 tries, right, last week. He scored 1 try, which was just one of the weirdest tries I've ever seen, where he literally got over the try line and sort of stopped and then let Gajo sort of run past him and then made another 5 meters close to the post. I don't know what was going on there. Don't know what that decision was. Put the ball down. Just scored the try. But a back row combination that's working extremely well. Shannon Frizzell in that Rugby Championship I was saying, you know, I wasn't sure who was going to fill in that number 6 shirt. Over the course of the Rugby Championship, I said Shannon Frizzell needs to be in this 6 shirt, and now he's, you know, such an important player involved in this this New Zealand team, along with Ardie Savea, who, you know, absolutely up there for a player of the tournament because he has had a phenomenal tournament. In terms of the halfback partnership, then Aaron Smith and Richie Mo'unga. Aaron Smith scoring more tries across this tournament than I was expecting him to. I always thought of, you know, Aaron Smith as, you know, he's absolutely there for your distributing and just picking those key passes, but we've seen him an absolute nightmare going himself or trying to go for those little sniping runs, trying to score those tries as well. Richie Mo'unga has been playing well at the fly half. Man, I'm really looking forward to seeing this game. In the centre partnership, Geordie Barrett goes back in alongside of Rico Ioane. Geordie Barrett's had another you know, good tournament, just turning up in those key moments where you need him to, against like Ireland. You know, he got that try stop against Dan Sheehan, stopped them from getting that ball down, got himself a try last week against Argentina as well. Absolutely what you want to be seeing from, you know, top performers in this New Zealand team. And then finally in that back three, Mark Taleo, Will Jordan and Beauden Barrett to seal out this team, with Will Jordan on for potentially the all-time record for tries in a single World Cup. He needs one more in this game. I've seen a lot of people saying, I really hope it's not one of these walkover tries. I don't think Will Jordan will care. if he gets his hands on the ball, he'll want to get over the try line. It's a solid 1 through 15. Quickly then, in terms of the replacements, then Samsoni Taukiaho goes in alongside of Tamaiti Williams and Nepo Laulala. Very, very excited to see, you know, Tamaiti Williams, still a young lad, getting himself in for a World Cup final. Performed well when he came on against Argentina. Was making some big carries from the prop, which I enjoy seeing. Props on the charge, making a bit of a nuisance of himself. The rest of the replacement forwards alongside them, Sam Whitelock and Dalton Papali'i going in alongside of the backs of Finlay Christie, Damien McKenzie and Anton Linnett-Brown. So Finlay Christie getting the nod ahead of Roygaard. Is this the right call? It's a massive call to make. Finlay Christie's been doing a great job of sealing out the games for New Zealand that we've seen in him. He's been looking to go for tries himself. He's been looking to, you know, be a very useful asset in this team. If the game is not going your way and you want someone to turn the game on its head, I'm not sure. I think of Finlay Christie. I think Roygaard could be one to step up there, but Finlay Christie, a lot of pressure on him. Let's hope he has a big game. Damien McKenzie and Anton Linnett-Brown there to do their coverage, some good coverage there. You've got your centre, your winger, and your fullback covered between the two of them. They have been chucking on Anton Linnett-Brown on the wing, and he's performed well every time I've seen him just sort of come on and just be there for a massive defensive game. Is the more recent games we've seen him come on for, just making tackles towards the end of the game that you absolutely have to make, has been superb. So massive team coming out for New Zealand, as we'd expect. And given the way that we saw England play against South Africa, the amount of kicking and how many issues that did cause for South Africa, I think it's probably the right way to go, right? Geordie Barrett, Richie Mo'unga, Beauden Barrett, 3, you know, massive kicking threats. Will Jordan, give him an inch of room, he's going to be running the length of the field. You've got to shut him down. Damien McKenzie to come on a little bit later, offering another threat. Anton Linnett-Brown's not bad off the boot either. There's a lot of threats for this South Africa team to keep an eye out for, and I, for one, can't wait to get into it. Talking of the team then, that they are going up against South Africa, who just about, you know, did the job. You can say that sort of in the quarterfinals and the semi-finals, just about getting through. Which is kind of surprising. In both those games, I had South Africa down to sort of be in control for big areas of those games. They struggled for quite a lot against that England team, but the resilience that you get to see in this South African team is just apparent. They just do not stop going. I saw an interview with Rassie Erasmus talking about, you know, what the pressure on them going into this tournament, and it was really interesting to hear their sort of viewpoints on it, the way they're coming into it, not thinking about that they've got pressure on them and that it's that their pressure is to deliver hope over in South Africa, but more a privilege to actually get to deliver hope over in South Africa, where I think there's still quite a few issues going on as just generally as a country. And I really like that attitude. They're not putting the pressure on themselves. They're saying we have the opportunity to bring this, and you sort of see it in the resilience that they do show for those games. Even when they're down on the scoreboard, they kept fighting. They're willing to come back, and some of those key areas that we'll talk about in a second, which were so vital against England, and how they they may play a part in this one. Starting out in the front row then, Stephen Kitchoff, Bongi Mbonambi and Frans Malherbe, the same front row as you'd probably expect going on from last week against England. Now, one of the talking points that came out, I've not really jumped on it because I don't like to, stir the pot and what have you. There was a whole controversy going on between Mbonambi and Tom Curry, which came from a passing comment made in a game. It got misheard during the game as potentially a racial slur, and Tom Curry asked the ref about it, and the ref said, we hadn't heard it, we'll carry on, we'll play on, and it'll keep an eye out for it. Nothing came of it from the game, and both players walked away from it. The media's taken it by storm, and absolutely drilled in on this point. Over here in the UK, it is, you can't basically look at anything rugby without it coming up. I heard what the potential insult was. I've heard the defence coming in from Mbonambi saying, they was talking Afrikaan. I'm hopefully going to get that pronunciation sort of correct. And it's just said in the game, he's trying to help his own team out. He's speaking his own language, and it's got misheard by someone else who speaks a different language that it sounds slightly different. The World Rugby have come back and said he's cleared to play. We don't believe he said anything. Cool. Move on. I really hope that stops being such a narrative in the media and such a focus on it. I think on both sides, I heard Tom Curry's been getting like massive threats. Don't know what that's about. I absolutely understand why someone in a pitch surrounded by 80,000 people might mishear something said in game, and I also understand that Bongi Mbonambi's been getting a lot of heat on him for saying something that he didn't say. Let it go. If there's two people from that game that don't care about it, it's probably Mbonambi and Tom Curry, right? It's rugby. I've played rugby. I'm sure many of you guys have watched rugby. If you've ever been on a pitch, you get called a lot of things. I've been called similar things on a rugby pitch. You just carry on. I get called worse things in the YouTube comments, right? But I'm very glad that he's been cleared to play. I'm glad that World Rugby's looked at it. If there is a racial element involved in it, I'm glad they've looked at it. They've had a look at it. They've resolved it. There was no issue. And we move on. I really hope that sort of gets left behind now in the media, because I think it overrode, actually, a performance by Mbonambi against England that was quite immense. Right? He put the full 80 in. Dion Forey came on last week, moved into the flanker position, right? And I don't think a lot of praise was given to him playing the full 80 for South Africa in a front row in a scrum that was dominating England at massive portions of that game. And I think he deserves quite a lot of praise for his performance that was put in, but it unfortunately got a bit overshadowed by that sort of level of negativity. So hopefully that's all resolved now, and we'll stop hearing about it now that World Rugby said he's clear, and we'll enjoy watching this game. In terms of the lock department, then Eben Etzebeth and Franco Mostert. Who else are going to be? These two big boys. Eben Etzebeth, another one, I believe, is up for player of the tournament across this, because he's had another superb tournament. And then in that back row, Sia Khaleesi, Peter Steph du Toit, and Dwayne Vermeulen. So 1 through 8, exactly the same as we got to see last week against England. Now the backs. The backs is where we're changing this one up a bit. Faf de Klerk and Andre Pollard coming in. Now, there was a whole thing going on last week. Marnie Libok getting taken off after, 35 minutes? And you felt, unfortunately not his game, not going his way. Andre Pollard came on. Don't necessarily know if he improved the running play of the team, but the organisation of the South African team was much better. Kicking from hand was much better. Kicking towards the post, was always going to be solid. Starting him off in this game is absolutely the right call for me. I think against New Zealand, taking threes at every opportunity is going to be vital. This could well be, another game like we saw with South Africa versus Ireland, right? Could be close on the scoreboard. 3 points are important. You do not want to be missing them. Andre Pollard, for me, is the absolute right call to be starting in this game over Marnie Libok. In the centre partnership, Damien Dialende and Jesse Creel join up once again in that centre partnership. And then in the back three, Cheslin Colby, Kurtley Arendse, and Damian Willemsen. I'm really hoping we get to hear these guys' names said, because last week, Cheslin Colby and Arendse, man, no one was getting the ball out to them. The weather not helping them. They just didn't want to go through the passes. They stuck through the forwards, and eventually the game plan worked for them. But man, you saw what Cheslin Colby can do in the quarterfinals, man. Get him the ball, get him some time on the ball. But I'm genuinely not sure if we will see that because of this South African bench. We're back to the 7-1. I've given up trying to guess at what South Africa are going to do. They've become a team I've thoroughly enjoyed learning a bit about over the last 2-3 years of doing YouTube and actually trying to follow some of the Southern Hemisphere rugby a bit more. South Africa is still surprising me every day, and I always really enjoy it. So in terms of their replacements then, Dion Forey-Oxen, Shea and Trevor Nyakane go in alongside Jean Klein, R.G. Snyman, Quagga Smith and Jasper Wiese. They'll be replacing basically the entire scrum in that second half. So if it wasn't a weapon already that they were so focused on from that England game, it will be even more focused on in this game, because there is so many top players to be coming on at that point. They are going to be focusing on that set piece. They are going to be trying to get the upper hand on New Zealand. In charge of the breakdown, slow down that New Zealand ball, mitigates their own wingers and stuff that are so dangerous. This is a big call. Big risk, big reward, maybe. That's the way you've got to think about this one. And then in terms of your replacement backs, Villy LaRue coming in, who... It's an interesting call because I think I would actually maybe make a big call here. Villy LaRue's used to the big games. He's a very experienced player, handcuffs. Villy LaRue hasn't blown me away over this tournament. And in terms of your coverage across that backfield and how you want them to work, I believe Damien Valemsa can slip into 12 if you need him to in terms of that centre position. I genuinely might have looked at someone like Keenan Moody for this game, just to give you as much coverage as possible. I know he's young. I know he's maybe technically inexperienced given the grandeur of a World Cup final, right? But they've tested him out on the wing. They've tested him at centre, and he plays well at both. I think that way he gives you coverage at either wing or centre. If your fullback got injured, I believe Cheslin Colby can cover your fullback position, so you'd slide Cheslin Colby back to 15 and put Moody out on the wing. If your 13 goes, Moody in at 13. If your 12 goes, you can move Damien Valemsa into 12, Cheslin Colby to 15, and Keenan Moody to 11. I personally think that might give you just more coverage in terms of your backs, because if you lose a winger in this game, I assume they're looking at Jesse Creel to move to the wing, Damien Valemsa to do 13, and Villy LaRue to play 15. I'm not quite sure how that puzzle piece will go together, but they've gone for the 7-1 split, so I'm assuming they are going to be focused on the forwards. They're going to go for that set-piece game. They're going to want to try and dominate those areas. So what are the big breakdown areas of this game? Well, for me, New Zealand need to look at this team and say, avoid the forwards. A lot of kicking, a lot of getting the ball wide, a lot of using those wingers, big running gameplay. You don't want to get bogged down in the breakdown situation. You don't want to be getting stuck between going from scrum to line out to maul to scrum. You don't want to be doing that, because that is where South Africa, I think, are going to thrive with the 7-1 split. Now, Ireland came up against the 7-1, and they came away with a win. 3 points and being able to get those kicks across, and just their resilience in their own defence was enough to pay off against South Africa. New Zealand have a solid set of defenders. In terms of the breakdown, we saw how good their game was against Ireland, how much they will compete at that breakdown. That is going to be a huge area in this game. One area that I think might have balanced out a bit from that South Africa-Ireland game to this one is having Andre Pollard in there. If it was Marnie Libok, I could see this game going exactly the way the Ireland one did, where maybe he's missing those kicks. Richie Mo'unga isn't missing kicks. If he misses 1 or 2, someone else is taking over those kicks from New Zealand. You just let them sort it through. Geordie Barrett, can get them over. Bowden Barrett can also take those kicks. Damien McKenzie can come on later and take those kicks as well. Andre Pollard on the pitch, take the 3 points. The forwards to maybe stick you in the set piece area and win you those penalties. This might be a World Cup winning combination. It could be. It could go down that way. New Zealand want to keep it open. They want to keep the game live. They want to be kicking that ball, up and down the field. They do not want it to go out for as many, line-outs and what have you. You don't want to be getting stuck in the scrum. You want to be using the wingers. A lot of high balls, putting big pressure on and trying to get, turnover penalties and taking your own threes as you go. Where do we see this game going? It is really hard to call. I'm actually not sure who's favourites going into this one. I imagine South Africa are favourites going in there. They're the world number 1. New Zealand are world number 2 at the minute. South Africa got the big win, right, in August, 35-7 in Twickenham. I made a little note for myself there. In the World Cup warm-up. They've won the most recent fixture. The only thing maybe going a little bit against South Africa is it seems like New Zealand turn up for this fixture when it comes to World Cup. They won this game in 2019. New Zealand beat South Africa, even though South Africa went on to win the World Cup. New Zealand did win that one in 2019, 23-13. in the World Cup. And then back in the 2015 World Cup, these two teams met as well, and New Zealand won that one as well. 20 points to 18. And across the last 10 games, it is 5 wins to New Zealand, 4 to South Africa, and 1 draw that happened in 2019 in the Rugby Championship. I think that was before I had my channel, so I think I remember actually watching that game, though. For the purposes of the video, I always like to make a call, but this is another one of those where it's going to be who turns up on the day, right? 1 injury, 1 red card changes the entire outcome of this game. I'm thinking I've seen more positives from New Zealand over the course of the World Cup compared to South Africa. I think South Africa have probably had a harder route to get to the World Cup, so maybe it's harder to show off quite how many positives they've been. They've played so many top competitors, and we've seen the arsenal that South Africa are going to be bringing, right? That scrum is going to be their biggest weapon in this game. If they can control the line out and the driving maul as well, the 7-1 bench is a good way to try and do that. I can see them taking control of this game if they start rumbling through those forwards. I'm just wondering whether New Zealand have peaked just at the right time in this World Cup to be able to take this one. Their backs are looking so dangerous from the set piece. Their set plays are looking really difficult to stop. They are scoring tries for fun. They've got that reliable kicker, as do South Africa now. I'm leaning more towards New Zealand. And I don't know why, because my head is saying go for South Africa. My gut is saying New Zealand. I'll go New Zealand by 4. That's going to be my prediction, guys. But of course, what do I know about rugby, right? Drop down in the comment sections your predictions for the scores. We do also have the polls up on the channel for not just this game, but the third place playoff as well. You can head over there on the community tab of the YouTube channel. You can go put your votes in on who you think is going to win. But one thing is for certain, this is going to be an enormous final, and I really, really hope this game lives up to the spectacle we got to see in the quarterfinals with New Zealand, Ireland, and South Africa, France. I hope both teams turn up. I'm really looking forward to this one as a neutral. I can only imagine the nail-biting stress that will probably be for you guys if you're an All Blacks or a Springbok supporter. But I'm really looking forward to this one, guys. I hope you all are too. And of course, we will be doing a review on the channel no matter what the outcome of this game is. I'm feeling a lot better now. I've got over my cold a little bit now, so I will have some energy, and let's hope it's all a really, really awesome game. Doesn't end up being some weird one-sided game, and we get to talk a lot about this game in the review, and we get to see who gets crowned the World Cup champions. I hope you've all enjoyed this one today, guys. I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.